I'd call this public hearing to order for the Village of Round Lake Beach for Monday, March 10th, 2014. Please call the roll.
Trustee Husk.
Here.
Trustee Valdez.
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
Trustee Butler.
Here.
Trustee Mount.
Here.
Trustee Mattingly. Mayor Hill.
Here. Let the record show a quorum is present. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion by trustee Smith, second by trustee Husk. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. We only have one item of business on this public hearing. That's the 2014-2015 fiscal year budget, and I will turn it over to our finance director, Brian Gosnell.
All right, thank you, Mayor, members of the board and village staff. The purpose of the meeting tonight is to hold a public hearing on the fiscal year 15 proposed budget. The village's financial planning and reporting process contains three planning elements that conclude with the annual budget. First is a multi-year financial forecast. It's followed by a multi-year capital plan, then the annual budget, which is why we're here tonight. Before we get to the budget, though, I wanted to talk a little bit about the forecast and primarily the capital plan, as that has changed quite a bit this year. The financial forecast projects major revenues and expenses that make about 3/4 of the annual budget. Helps the village identify early on any structural trends to revenues and expenses. Acts as a mock budget to help set the parameters for the upcoming budget preparation. And finally, and probably most importantly, identifies the capital funding available for the multi-year capital plan. Multi-year capital plan was kind of redesigned and developed this year for the village's four main infrastructure systems, and it totals just over $25 million worth of work over 10 years. The first system is the transportation system. This includes roads and sidewalks and accounts for about $17.6 million. Then the water system counts for about $6 million. Sanitary sewer system, about $1.4 million. And then the storm sewer system. Storm sewer system funding is currently included in the transportation system as those projects are done in conjunction with each other. Since this is the first year in this format anyway, I wanted to take a little bit more time and walk through each one of these systems. First, the transportation system. Before we did anything, we needed to look at how we could fund the improvements. And the funding plan had to come from new growth or expiring debt to avoid any large tax increases. And then for sustainability purposes, the village wanted to target a 50-50 pay-as-you-go debt program. And what came out of this was about $1 million annual pay-as-you-go program and then a $5 million bond issue every 5 years. So it's right at the 50-50 equation. Once we knew what we could afford, village engineers and staff went to work and came up with an approach that provided for in-kind replacement, so no upgrading of any infrastructure, just replacing what's currently there. And then in conjunction with the village engineers, did a pavement condition assessment of all of the streets in town and rated them 0 to 100, with 100 being new. At that point, we divided them into three categories. Those with a rating less than 40, wanted to address those in the first 5 years of the plan. Those with a rating between 40 and 80 would be addressed in the second 5 years, and those with a rating greater than 80 would be addressed in the following 5 years that are not forecasted in the plan. Also wanted to time maintenance programs, that's crack sealing programs and patching, ahead of the replacement plan at least 3 years. This map shows how the condition ratings came out, and you can see those streets with a condition rating less than 40 are in red, and then yellow and green from there. As the map indicates, most of the red and yellow streets are on the south-southwest portion of the community. And that's really where the funding and the work is focused in the 10 years of the plan. The next series of maps will go through year by year what the annual program would look like. Starting with 2015, the program is fully funded in this budget, just over $1.2 million. It includes work on Beverly, Gulfview, Mayfield, and then the completion of the Shorewood subdivision. Then 2016, 17, 2018, and 2019. You can see the work in 2019 increases substantially. This is the first bond issue, $5 million bond issue. It goes a long way to completing kind of that south-southwest target area. And then 2020, you can see by this time, the majority of the roads that were red or yellow are beginning to be addressed, particularly in the south-southwest portion. 2021, 22, 23, and then finishing in 2024. That's as far as the plan goes at this point. Plan will be adjusted annually given availability of grant funds or additional funding that may come up. For the water system, the funding plan capitalized on rate reduction from village's water supplier rather than a large increase in the village's rate. The largest portion of the funding coming in 2021. Because the funding didn't come until 2021, we also utilized a low-interest IEPA loan to coordinate this work with that first bond issue that you saw in 2019 for the road system. The approach we took here was time it with the road improvements, so we didn't have to go back through where we just did a road. Replace 4-inch main with 8-inch main. Utilize the age of the system and break history to kind of direct resources to individual areas. In the maps coming up, you'll see that until 2021, funding really isn't adequate enough to have an annual program, so we have to let it kind of build up for a couple years. It starts in 2016. And here you see the road program in black and red, and then the water program in blue. Kind of illustrates the coordination of these two programs. And then 2019, this is the IEPA loan that comes into play. You can see there's quite a bit of work done here. 2021 starts the annual program, 22, 23, and 24. For the sanitary sewer system, the village has a dedicated funding for this, funding source for this that's included as a separate fee on water bills. And the approach that we took with this system is largely driven from the CMOM program that requires the village to televise all the mains over the next 10 years. And based on those findings, then the village will program spot repairs and lining work into the plan. Currently, right now, the plan is only 4 years out because that's all the televising we've done to date. That'll be updated as we go along and accomplish more of the televising. As you can see here in 2015, spot repairs are in green, and the lining program is the black dash line. 2016, 17, 18. The remainder will be programmed in once that televising portion is done. Storm sewer system, as of right now, we don't have a dedicated funding source. This is really built into the road work because of the coordination between the two projects. And really here, just looking to kind of mitigate any funding. This is one of the systems we're going to be taking a closer look at in the upcoming budget year, kind of see where we can improve things and maybe direct some resources there. That's it for the capital plan. As I mentioned before, getting into the budget, the forecast kind of helps us set the parameters for the upcoming budget cycle. And those parameters were no new sources of revenue, maintaining services and service levels, no use of reserves for operations, fully fund the capital plan we just talked about, and adhere to the village's reserve policies. Like most municipalities, the village has to balance the rising costs of providing services and infrastructure with available resources, particularly in the economic times that we're in now. That has become a struggle. Some of the threats to that balance are rising personnel costs, federal and state pressures as they deal with their budget issues at both of those levels. General service and infrastructure rising costs, commodity prices, things like that. Property values and unemployment. All these factors require us to work with less resources and still get the job done. And the village has done that by focusing on long-term plans, kind of knowing what we need a few years out, adopting an operating philosophy that focuses on providing services in the most cost-effective and efficient manner, and updating financial policies. It used to be you could count on an annual automatic 3 to 5% growth. You can't do that anymore. The new economic reality has really forced us to update some of our financial policies, particularly the general fund reserve level. Was set at 65%. That is where it was the level at the last Moody's bond rating, so it's a pretty good level to target. Also utilize any excess for capital spending. Any excess in the general fund will be used to move up the capital program. And then make a commitment to long-term planning. As you can see, with the forecast in the capital plan, it really helps us get most of the budget done before we even get to this point, and allows us to look a little bit into the future. Goals and objectives for the fiscal year will reflect the responses that I just mentioned, include long-term planning, continuing that, efficient service delivery, maintaining infrastructure, and then increasing operational and financial transparency so we can make informed business decisions about how we want to operate. Now for the numbers. Fiscal year 15 proposed budget is almost $21 million. Includes $14.8 million for operating expenses, $3.9 million in capital spending, $2.3 million for debt service. Also includes $1.18 million in reserves to complete capital projects, mainly the Shorewood subdivision road work that we started last year, and the second half of the Rollins Gateway water main relocation cost. Funded full-time staff in the budget goes from 82 to 77. All but one of those positions are currently vacant. That's a 20% reduction in the last 5 years. So it's pretty significant. Where does the money come from? 35% from intergovernmental revenues. That's sales tax, income tax, things like that. 23% from charges for service. That's largely the water and sewer funds. 14% from other taxes such as home rule sales taxes and utility taxes. And then property taxes are at 12%. Where does the money go? As primarily a service operation, 41% goes to personnel costs. 19% for capital, 15% for contractual services, 11% for debt service, and about 8% for operating supplies. Expenditures by fund. Again, here we total $21 million. 14.8 for operating, 3.9 for capital, 2.3 for budget, or for debt service, The largest fund is the village's general fund at just over $10.1 million, and the water and sewer operating fund at almost $4 million. Take a little bit closer look at those two funds here in a minute. You'll notice that 4 funds are not budgeted for, and this is due to either elimination of TIF districts, or expiration of TIF districts, or the bond-funded capital fund that's going to lay dormant until 2019 when we have that first bond issue for the road program. General fund by department. Again, the general fund is just over $10.1 million. That's $180,000 or 1.81% increase over last year's budget. Water and sewer fund, almost $4 million. It's actually reduced $13,000 or 0.33%. Again, most of the changes in the general fund between the departments and the water and sewer fund between the departments are either changes in how we allocate expenditures or personnel-related expenditures or changes. Non-infrastructure related capital spending in the budget totals about $600,000. Includes 3 patrol cars, 2 SUVs, 2 economic development pickups. I should note here that through some staffing efficiencies in the Economic Development Department, we were able to reduce the fleet from 6 to 4. So even though they are replacing 2 vehicles, the overall fleet is down. 1 5-ton snowplow truck. The village will look to lease this vehicle. In our vehicle plan, this is the only vehicle left that we actually lease. They're about $135,000, $140,000. So we put them on a 5-year lease, helps with the cash flow. And then technology-related spending focuses primarily on replacing the village's phone system, document management system, ERP software. This is financial, building, utility billing software, and then some computers for the squad cars, some e-citation software, and then the normal PC network hardware replacement that happens annually. In conclusion, I just want to note, last year we talked a lot about using the Rollins Gateway project to stabilize operations and plan for the future, and the village did that. We did look for operating efficiencies, continued efficiency analysis on different processes. Did perform the long-term planning, including the first iteration of the capital plan. So 2015, the focus is really on executing the long-term plans, continuing to seek those process efficiencies, but also implementing technology to make the staff that we do have more efficient. So with that, happy to take any questions. I'd like to thank the department heads and their staff for helping put the budget together, particularly the chief, who I know will miss this more than anything in retirement.
Well, thank you, Brian, for the presentation. Any other trustees have any questions?
No, good job.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you.
excellent job.
I would agree, yeah, the staff and Brian driving this for us here's done a great job putting it all together and making sure we can maintain our fiscal solvency and still get a lot of projects accomplished over the next 5 years. Anyone else on the board have any questions or comments? Anyone from the audience have any questions or comments on our budget hearing? Well, I thank you all for being here. If there's no questions or comments, I ask for a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Butler, second by trustee Mount. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This hearing is closed. We'll begin our board meeting